Welcome. You're live on Capitol Hill. You're in the war room. Got Dr. Stephen Hatfield, Greg Manns, our expert on Pennsylvania politics, back from the campaign. Jack Maxey, who's with us, although a little under the weather here, on his fifth chaw of tobacco today. So, you know, it's a big day for Jack. We're on the John Fredericks Radio Network. We're on Real America's Voice, the streaming service of the Trump Revolution. We're on satellite, Dish Channel 219, Comcast Channel 113, Newsmax TV in 70 million homes, and, of course, throughout the known and unknown world on G News and GTV. I want to thank our Chinese American partners for doing that for us, putting it in Mandarin. Okay, we've got now, and we understand he's under time pressure, Boris Epshteyn, also from the legal side of the campaign, fighting for President Trump. Boris, I think we didn't have time to, the mayor, we got into the details, but I want to pull the camera back just for a second, because I think it's amazing, given all the grief you guys are getting. Actually, when you see the battlefield and you see now the evidence that you've got, the receipts that you have and the details, the statistics, the math, the affidavits, the witnesses across the board, the media saying it's over and, Trump's moving to Florida and the Secret Service is going down there and everything. You guys are expanding this. You're in Pennsylvania, in Gettysburg tomorrow with the state Senate of Pennsylvania. You're in, I think, Arizona on Monday, Michigan on Tuesday at state legislatures, right? Keying up to go before the entire body there. You're fighting in court. You're thinking of dropping other laws. The media's response to this, and quite frankly, even the conservative media, like, it's over, let's just go. And we're saying this is not over. One, it's not over. You got to close on the win. Number two, the Republicans in the balance. If we let this happen, it's over. And it also means we don't care. You're going to Gettysburg is so symbolic because that's Burke's dictum. We owe 157 years ago Friday was the 157th anniversary of the Gettysburg Address. That's the battlefield. That's the battlefield's right next to where you're going to be. I think the Eisenhower Center, and the cemetery's on the other side of that. What do we owe those guys? What would they think of us just to let this? Oh yeah, they just stole it, but we can't do anything. It's so terrible because the media's saying bad things about me. What are we talking about? You're at Gettysburg. We owe our heritage so much. And Boris, I think it's amazing the job you're doing. And I just say, hey, you and Rudy and all these guys, and all you get is grief. All you get is people saying throw in the towel. You're recalcitrant. You're taking Trump down the wrong path. And I'm here to tell you, you are doing the Lord's work in this effort. So thank you, sir. Now, how did you expand the battlefield? How did you pull this off?
Well, Steve, I appreciate it, and I appreciate the kind words. And I want to tell you, I want to tell the known world and the unknown world, everything we're doing hot off the presses. We've got a new lawsuit we're dropping in the state of Arizona as we speak, and it's focused on three major things. One, Maricopa County elections officials illegally refused to allow official elections observers to observe the process by which mail-in ballot signatures were verified, and we're demanding to inspect the envelopes and signatures to ensure that they were legally signed and not fraudulent. Further, Maricopa County election officials illegally failed to allow official observers to watch the process by which damaged, rejected ballots were fixed, which are called duplicate ballots. There was an unusual amount of duplicate ballots printed in one specific district where, guess what? The outcome was unusually high in Biden's favor, Queens Creek, Congressional District 5. We're requesting to inspect those duplicated ballots, the fixed ballots, to ensure that there is no error in the process. We are working hard. We are working all over the country. We're looking at Georgia. We are making ensure that the recount there includes signature matching. In Pennsylvania, we continue to move forward in the Third Circuit. Yesterday, we had 2 wins there, and we are pushing forward to enable us, to enable the Trump people to speak, to file that second amended complaint, which encompasses all of the fraud, or not even all of it, but a majority of the fraud in Pennsylvania. And tomorrow, Mayor Giuliani is going up there. He's going to do a great job. He's going to do a great job in Gettysburg. He's going to battle in Gettysburg and lay out the extensive amount of fraud all throughout Pennsylvania. And then we are in Michigan next week, in Arizona on Monday. Wisconsin recount continues, and there are hearings set now for Nevada. So no matter how much CNN, the New York Times, and even the New York Post now, because maybe they've made a business decision to go the other way, we want for there to be a Biden administration, this campaign, this president, this legal team are ensuring that every legal vote is counted, and we are expanding the battlefield, pun intended, with Mayor Giuliani going to Gettysburg tomorrow.
Okay, here's the question. By the way, the audience has your back, and what they want to know is what they have to do to put pressure on state legislatures. And here's the thing. It's just to count every legal ballot. Every legal ballot must be counted, and if every legal ballot is the chain of custody and is accredited and certified, and if President Trump loses, he loses. These are American patriots. They get it. Hey, you lost, right? You ran a great race, but we counted all the legal ballots. They lost, but we're not going to count any uncertified illegal ballots that don't have chain of custody. But the question our audience has in supporting you and having your back and thinking you guys are doing amazing work, is there enough runway now that you're back re-engaged at the state legislatures? You're tomorrow in Gettysburg. You're going to do Monday in Arizona, Tuesday in Michigan. Ducey and them are going to make decisions of whether there's enough here to start to call back the legislature for you to make bigger presentations. Right. Where your witnesses will be cross-examined, right? At the same time, fighting through federal courts on these six different efforts. Do you have enough runway? Do you have enough resources? Do you have enough manpower? And do you have enough time?
We do. We definitely do on all three. In terms of time, you know the time. We've got till midnight on December 13th, and we are going to take every single chance, every opportunity to make sure, as you said, that every legal vote counts, because it is not about this president. It's about the president, and it's about the legality and the full transparency of our voting process. We want to know what the legal votes were for President Trump and for Vice President Biden. And if the legal vote count comes out the other way, if Joe Biden really got 80 million votes, and I'm going to say it again, if Joe Biden really got 80 million votes, God bless. But if anybody thinks that an incumbent who got 12 million votes more than last time, President Trump, 63 to 75, is going to be lost fair and square to Joe Biden, well, you know what? I've got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. Because, and maybe I've got 5 bridges all over Manhattan, okay? Because that is an absolute joke. That is an absolute joke. Joe Biden had 4 people in a bunch of circles at his rallies. President Trump had tens of thousands. And you think all of a sudden he's beating them by 150,000 in Michigan? Come on. Come on. Let's just be honest. We know that the Democrats, the left, have been perpetrating fraud on the American people in elections for decades. For decades.
I want to.
JFK won the 1960 presidential election because Chicago and Texas were stolen. And now it keeps happening and happening and happening. And for the first time, as you mentioned, for the first time in a long time, maybe ever, Republicans are standing up and saying, we're here to be counted. And to your answer, what our people can do is make sure that your local representatives don't cancel these meetings. Make sure they attend the meetings and they do the right thing, which is look for the legal vote count in each one of their states. Make sure they know that our Republican local officials, elected officials, state officials, national officials have to act with honesty and truly count every legal vote and not just do the easy thing, which is roll over for the New York Times.
Quickly, because I know you're pressed for time, but I want to go to people, since they started this process in Wisconsin, people have kind of taken their eye off the ball. What is, because I'm hearing great things out of Wisconsin. Get our audience up to speed of what's actually happening in this recanvassing audit recount that's going on in Wisconsin right now.
The recount's ongoing. It may be done as soon as tomorrow, maybe toward the end of the week for both Milwaukee and Dane counties. And from what we understand, exactly what we expected, which is that in Wisconsin, where vote by mail and absentee is not a right, it's a privilege. You have to apply for it and be granted that right. We believe that we're going to see a huge number, 100,000 or more, of absentee mail ballots that do not match up to granted application. And guess what that is? That is unlawful balloting. Those are illegal votes, and we want to count just the legal votes. President Trump is only down 20,000 in the state of Wisconsin.
You think actually when they come out, there could be as much as 100,000 to get tossed out?
We're going into this recount. Our sources told us to expect that up to between Milwaukee and Dane County, Dane is where Madison is, up to 100,000 ballots were not going to match up, meaning 100,000 votes cast that do not match up with granted applications. And that's only in that issue. That's not even talking about to the indefinitely confined issues, which is people saying they were confined but they're not, and other problems.
Well, that was over 100. That was over 100,000. That was.
I think that was in Wisconsin. That was about 212,000. Normally was around
25
20,000.
exactly.
Yep.
So it's almost 200,000 difference. You're not including.
Exactly.
But here's what for the audience. I think where people get lost. Paul Ryan, a guy from Wisconsin.
Who?
Okay, exactly. But next question: how does a guy from Wisconsin? Because everybody that's associated with this, even the most establishment people, are saying it stinks to high heaven. In the Wisconsin, although the
So what did Paul
Wisconsin.
Ryan say?
Well, Paul Ryan said the vote's over. He lost. It's time to move on, and we're just hurting democracy. I think it was hurting democracy by continuing on this. Trump lost. It's time to move on. Biden won. How can a guy from Wisconsin, when it's open secret?
Paul Ryan's enjoying his fancy board seats, okay? He's doing that while we're here fighting it out for democracy. And guess what? Paul Ryan's a lifelong loser. Paul Ryan was supposed to be the rising star of this party, got absolutely destroyed by Joe Biden in the 2012 election. Okay, how'd that go for him? Okay, and then he quit being, and he kept whining about being Speaker of the House, which is like the best job ever. All you gotta do is you go up there, gavel, you talk to some people. It's not that bad. Okay, ask Boehner, he loved it. Smoke cigars, play golf, talk to some people. It's great.
By the way,
so Paul Ryan. So you know what? I'm gonna discount Paul Ryan's comments.
Okay, he also did not count. He did not carry Wisconsin. It didn't carry his home
I'll tell you
state.
one thing about Paul Ryan. That's one leprechaun who found the gold at the end of his rainbow. That's for sure.
With the board seats. Okay, I want to go to Georgia right now. It's a little confusing. What exactly are you asking for in Georgia? Are you just going to go back and do another recount of these ballots? You're in court. You want to recanvass? You want to audit? What are you asking for in Georgia?
We want to do an honest recount, which has to include signature matching. We have to match the signatures from the ballots to the envelopes, and ensure that the people who voted are the ones who the ballots cast actually match up with voters. Also, we want to discover any more thousands of ballots that they have. They already found about 5,000 or 6,000 ballots in pro-Trump County. Would be nice to know where the rest are hidden. Would be nice to know.
We got about 30 seconds. How can this audience, this is a massive audience, they're very engaged in this and they're listening every day because they want the details. They want the granularity. What can this audience do to support you, Rudy, the team, and the President of the United States in this effort?
Well, first of all, I want to thank everyone. I want to thank you, Steve. I want to thank your whole team over there at the War Room. And most of all, I want to thank the audience. Give everybody love. And I'll tell you this. Again, be vocal. Be vocal on social media. Email your local representatives. Call their offices and say, hey, let's get to the bottom of this. Let's count every legal vote. It's not about, let's give the election to one candidate or the other. Let's stand for election integrity. That's what we're asking for. And that's what we're asking the audience to ensure that their representatives do.
Boris, how do people follow you on social media? How during the day can they follow Boris Epshteyn?
At Boris EP on Twitter, the one, the only at Boris on Parler, Boris_Epshteyn on Instagram. I'm posting some cool stuff up there, okay? And you know what? We're having a great time because we're defending democracy. God bless you, Steve. God bless everybody.
Boris, thank you very much. Boris Epshteyn from the campaign. We're going to take a short commercial break. It's scary to know. I thought all the influencers were like 22-year-old, it's Fog City Midge in that crowd. Now we got Boris is doing Instagram. He's on the gram. Maybe I should do the gram. I've been kicked off everything else. Maybe I start doing Instagram. Okay, we're going to return. We got Dr. Hatfield here. Jack Maxey. They're up in arms in Germany. They're fighting the mask. They're fighting shutdowns, lockdowns, all of it. World's on fire. We're going to return to War Room in a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
20,000 plus emails and text messages, okay, that show a substantial and deep involvement with foreign companies controlled by foreign governments that have never been disclosed before, okay? These people they're a national security problem. And the issue before us today is why the FBI didn't deal with the national security problem. This is just not a bunch of grifters from Wilmington, Delaware. right? This guy's running for president of the United States. He's been vice president of the United States. He was head of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Okay, every country in the world is trying to get access to him. Okay, this is what this issue is about. This is a national security problem. And the guys around him, the Jake Sullivans, the Tony Blinkens, all these guys that want to be, Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense and National Security Advisor, they're going to have to answer. They're going to have to answer. And that day's coming. Because, he's not going to be president, but if they're going to do a faux transition, we're going to do a real beatdown, okay? Because you're getting on our nerves now. Seriously, getting on our nerves. We're trying to save the republic here by having a fair vote. Instead of Joe Biden wandering around today with the guys with the mask, look like they're about to rob a train, right? With 9 guys back there with masks. Why isn't he reaching out to his campaign and said, look, I want to sort this thing out in Pennsylvania. I want to sort this thing out in Detroit. I want to sort this thing out in Wisconsin. I would not accept, and I would never accept these early vote things that were done by absentee mail but really weren't done, right? I don't want to do this. It's not right for the country. Whereas he talks unity, he talks all this smack, right? And he's got a bunch of – this is how sleazy the guys are around him. And they're also idiots. It's just like the hard drive from hell. The grift is so stupid and so in your face. It's just like the stealing the thing. They're not subtle about it. They're just in your face because they don't think, no, they think Republicans are just going to roll over and clutch their pearls and say, this is terrible. Did you make reservations at the club, dear, so we can, go wine over some drinks? No, we're not doing that. You got a bunch of ruffians now.
Why do they think
we're
that,
street
though?
fighters. We don't care. We didn't get invited to the club. They threw us out. So.
Why do they think that, though? I think it's because
they
people
quit.
like Paul Ryan.
This is my point. A quitter. A lot of quitters. Easy to quit. Easy. Let's just quit, and we can go watch football on Thanksgiving Day. We don't have to work through the 4 days or 5 days.
Paul Ryan, not an heir to the Iron Battalion of Wisconsin. Coward, quitter, loser.
And but this is the thing. In Wisconsin, it's on fire. You showed that if the guys in Denver can play the video of the people on Sunday morning. This is the second day. They had 250 or 300, I think, showed up at this place on the first day. The second day is like 3 times as many. They're wrapped around the corner. That's in Wisconsin. Paul, do you still keep touch with the Wisconsin, or now that you're on the board at Fox, it's just they're the little people. But that's what this show is. The show is it's all the little guys. But the little guys, when they lock arms into a phalanx, is an unmovable force. It's called the Iron Brigade of Wisconsin, right? That was guess where the Iron Brigade was? It was at Gettysburg. I mean, it was all over, fought everywhere, but at Gettysburg is where they really came to fame, right? They would not bend. On the day one, you wouldn't have had, the Union would have gotten rolled up all the way back to Washington. It would have been over in one day if the Iron Brigade and the others on the first day at Gettysburg did not stop them early in the afternoon. That's what you had. These guys. What was the casualties we did the other day? 71%.
They had 3 regiments from that battalion with over 70% casualty rates.
70% casualties.
At Gettysburg, and as a battalion for the war, they had over 60% casualties in extent.
This is insane.
One thing that everybody has to
understand.
When
General Reynolds went down, this is how intense the fire was. The general went down to set him up on the first day to get him in formation. He's the first general. I think he's the only Union general that was killed at Gettysburg right there. Day one, bang, blew him right out of the saddle.
Well, and the other thing that everyone has to understand, and the Iron Brigade is a perfect example of it, there are so many times in history when small groups of men and women took a stand that nobody thought that they could endure. And guess what? They changed the day. We saw this with a machine gunner at Guadalcanal. We've seen this every time we fight people.
Sergeant York, everything. Go there with your backs to the wall. That's what I'm saying. We're going to have good days in this world. We're going to have bad days. Yesterday afternoon, about 5 or 6 o'clock, that was not the best day, right? The worst was the people around him. I'll be blunt. Gore didn't start, or Gore didn't gave up on the 13th. They didn't start the transition to the 14th. No problem. In Bush in 2000. Why did they have to start a transition? Why do they have to have landing teams?
Well,
why do it? He hasn't won yet. Why even do this?
And remember, Bill Clinton did not release a single dime from the GSA until December 14th, the weekend after the Supreme Court had declared, again,
Well,
Republican president.
I think the Supreme Court did it on the 12th, but the 14th is the day of the Electoral College. That's what you got to do it. We've been saying this. December 14th is probably game day. But if you go back to Blinken and these guys, if they're going to pretend they're going to be in administration, then we're not going to pretend to beat down on them nonstop. And these guys are right off the hard drive from hell. Here is the in your face. They're stealing in your face, but the grift is even worse. Now, here's what it is. We said day one. Why did I say 2 months ago this guy can't get confirmed? Not confirmable. And he's just a clerk. He hasn't upset anybody. He's part of this. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, it's not a conspiracy. Don't believe this deep state stuff. What do I say? It's in your face. It's an in your face state. He's a clerk that goes all the way up through the system. Just a clerk. Right? Starts as a grundoon. He's just a clerk. Everybody's a clerk. And now he's going to be nominated to be Secretary of State, head clerk. Okay? That's the system. It's not a deep state. He's just a shumsmender. And when they leave, they go to Council of Foreign Relations. They get some money there. They start a consulting firm. We've been talking about this for weeks. Now Politico's got the story, right? We've been talking about this for a week. This is how in your face they are. They named but I think there's 20 people coming from this consulting firm. Flournoy's a partner. All these other guys. I think Sullivan may have something to do with it. The consulting firm is called West Exec. Now, West Exec is the name of the street. The old State Department is that beautiful kind of Victorian building, right? The late 19th century building that's right there. It was the old State Department, and it's turned into the Executive Office Building, now called the Eisenhower. And that's where most of the staff of the National Security Council and most of the staff, in fact, the legendary Peter Navarro and his team are over there. Most of the people there. The West Wing is very small, very old, very cramped, very small. A petri dish for COVID-19, okay? And it's on top of, essentially the White House is a military command post with a residence on it and a small office. It's underneath, you get the National Security Council, right? That's where the Kennedy room, the Situation Room, and everything like that. So that's underneath. But it's very tiny. So most people work in the Executive Office Building. They named the consulting firm. Talk about chutzpah. They named the consulting firm West Exec. It's like, baby, we're not just selling access. We're broadcasting access. And what's there? And if you read down in the thing, the buried lead on paragraph 10 of every story, is guess what their biggest business is? Getting market access for American companies into China. It's just pure CCP grift. Their whole business is saying right now, it's a return to stability, it's return to order, it's just the neoliberal, neocon, America in decline. Remember, why is Donald Trump president of the United States? Because of the managed decline of our country by our elites. Notice I didn't say Democrat, I didn't say Republican, by our elites. Gore Vidal used to call it the Uniparty. People laughed at him at the time, but it's the managed decline in every aspect of American life, whether it was border security, health care, education, manufacturing. And what does it come from? What does it manage decline? Because we're not the economic powerhouse we once were. With the financialization of the country, you've got this concentration of wealth. But even the jobs that come up, that's kind of these service jobs, we're not the manufacturing powerhouse we used to be in the 19th century. And how did that come about? It was through something called the American system, built by Hamilton and then someone named Henry Clay. And Henry Clay was the idol of what politician? The biggest nationalist in the history of this country, the single biggest nationalist in the history of this country, Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln was about the Union. Obviously, freeing the slaves, part of it, right? A big part of it, particularly after a couple years in the war when he knew he had to take the war to the higher moral plane. But it was to save the Union at first, right? What did Lincoln do? His side gig when he fought a bloody civil war as basically a totalitarian dictator because he became himself a warlord. He had to win it. He, which they never talk about today when they're jumping on Trump. This is a guy that really threw reporters in jail, threw a congressman in jail, running guys out of the country, putting guys in prison with no habeas corpus. He did three things. He passed the Transcontinental Railroad, he passed the Homestead Act, and he passed the Land Grant University Act, right? This was a guy that had a vision. In fact, I would actually argue, and I've argued before, that it was globalist versus nationalist then. I'm a Southerner, right? I come from Richmond, Virginia. the capital of the Confederacy. So I'm deeply imbued in all the history of the Confederacy. But the Confederacy, the plantation aristocracy, the first thing they want to do is cut a deal with the British. They were thinking about going back in the British Empire, make a slave empire in Latin America and South America. They were globalist. They say it's a war of independence, but it was their independence as an interim basis to then hook up with something else. Lincoln was a hardcore nationalist. And here you have guys, the globalist grift. They actually name it West Exec Avenue. I got news for you, Tony. There is zero probability. First off, he's not going to be president, so you're not going to be nominated. But in some fantasy, it's zero probability you would be. Because Jack Maxey's in your stuff. We got emails here. We got you. First off, you're part of allowing them to do the grift and not turn anybody in. They're doing FARA. They're calling on you nonstop. Where's the report that turns them in? Hey, can you actually do this? Can you set these meetings up? Are you getting paid for this? The answer, Tony, was yes. Should have asked that question. Okay, we're going to be back in the war room in a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, we got Dr. Hatfield here for a reason. We're going to do some pandemic in a second. The touchstone of the show. Want to say something. America's Voice, Real America's Voice, got a great special by Dr. Gina Loudon. As soon as we're off the air at 7, stay right here. We're going to go right into it. They've got John Solomon, Kurt Schlichter. They've got Senator Marsha Blackburn, and of course John Solomon, the great investigative reporter. This is Real America's Voice, hosted. It's an election special hosted by Dr. Gina Loudon, and they're getting into the details there. John Solomon's broken some of the most important stories about this entire time. Okay, West Exec Avenue. That is the street inside the compound of the White House. We're going to get an aerial tomorrow and show you. But you can see the executive office building, the White House, the West Wing, and that little street, that little road that's between there is called West Exec. This is what the name of their firm was, just so the Chinese didn't get it. Hey, get it? We're like the White House guys, right? That's where they're selling. They're selling access. That's the whole point of the hard drive from hell. Remember, in the hard drive from hell, when we release this stuff, you come for the porn, but you stay for the compromise, right? You got Hunter doing, acts of depravity all over the place, right? But you stay for the compromise. And what's the compromise? The compromise is these guys taking cash money for dealing, for basically kowtowing to the Chinese Communist Party, the dirtiest companies there. Why? You got West Exec Avenue, right? And you got them all hooked up with it, Blinken and all these guys. And they got a history of emails back when they were in government of Tony Blinken taking meetings. They're pitching him, they're coming and taking meetings. He had to know, is that, hey, are you FAR qualified? You signed up here? What am I doing? So I think you've got don't you have some breaking news, Jack?
Well, there's also something interesting in one of the emails. We're not going to get all into the dirt. We'll save that for the trial.
We got plenty of time.
We'll save that for the trial, Tony. But this is just a very telling one. Naomi Biden was asked to be part of something called the Boao Forum in China. The Chinese advertised this as the Chinese version of Davos for the world's elite. Now, she was invited to go there, I guess, in 2019, at which point she would have been, I think, 25 years old and a college student in law school. Why she suddenly became part of the global elite, I'll never know. But in saying that she couldn't go, she responds to a fellow saying, it is with great regret that I write to tell you that I will not be able to attend the Boao Forum. When I originally asked my grandfather if it would be okay to attend, he agreed, and it sounded like a great opportunity. In doing his due diligence, my pop asked his China experts and advisors to brief him on my attendance and how it may be perceived by the press and Chinese government. I think you and Tony Blinken discussed some of this on the phone last week. After he had all the information and upon the advice of his staff, my pop asked that I respectfully tell the Boao Forum that I would not, in fact, be able to attend. I guess sending your 25-year-old daughter over for a forum is bad form, but sending your son over to come back with garbage bags full of Chinese dirty money and attempting to sell out the country is all fine, huh, Tony?
I think the pop there. I believe the pop may be referring to our man Hunter.
Oh yeah, she's referring to Hunter.
Hunter, yeah.
Now it was.
Yeah, he didn't have
it
a
was
problem.
Granddaddy's experts who gave the advice.
Yeah, but he didn't have a problem bringing in the. Remember, he was the new business guy. Hunter's not the brains of the operation, as is obvious. He's drinking what the client's drinking.
Hunter is
right?
Christopher Moltisanti. For any of those who like The Sopranos, and Tony is Joe.
God, making these boomer cultural references. Jack just
and guess what? Both Chris and Hunter happen to be what? Crackheads. Talk about a whole circle right there.
Yeah, that's irony. I want to get into some of the pandemic. We got one of the world's leading experts here. 3 Minutes to Midnight. Talk about a book that was prescient.
Oh my gosh.
He comes out with a book. It was in the fall. The book came out in the fall of 19. When did the book come out? Fall of 2019. Dr. Hatfield writes a book called 3 Minutes to Midnight, which is 3 seconds of midnight. 3
seconds.
3 seconds. 3 seconds of midnight, which is about the next pandemic. And we get him. I call around, as I always do when we start something like this. I say, give me I got to have the smartest guys in the world, because we're going to go through nomenclature, process, critical path, everything. And of course, this guy shows up. But I can't understand anything he's saying because it's so complicated. But it explains to our audience what's happening. And he's been a huge help to the country. One thing I want to get into, we've got a couple of minutes here, but on the pandemic, is what's happening in Europe. And this, people are dumping on the Trump people and everything like that, but it seems like it's unclear what people are trying to do. I think what the Trump administration did, which I don't think they sold enough as what they were doing as a not marketing effort, but to let people understand doing this thing of targeted interventions. We've gone up a learning curve in the pandemic. We now know that comorbidities, right, and that is that obviously the elderly, the infirmed, the people that are in long-term care, minority communities, people with high blood pressure, or people that are obese, all these, and you can target around that. So the learning curve we come straight up on. But you still have these kind of mass mandates. These kind of lockdowns they're talking about. And in Germany, particularly in Europe, it's starting to kick back. Is Denmark, but man, this thing in Germany, they're rolling in and hitting these guys. I don't know if we have the video up or we can play it. They're hitting them with fire hoses. I mean, straight on. It's like something out of Bull Connor, right? I mean, they're because these people are not backing down. And you got to call them. They're gone beyond demonstrations. They're kind of the riots now, aren't they? They're getting more back. Why is it on both the mask and the lockdowns? Where do you think the science takes us right now?
We've known since mid-March, that older patients with certain chronic diseases, were much more vulnerable and needed to be protected. If you have any doubt about that, look at the governor of New York. Instead of following the national pandemic plan, this was all years ago, updated in 2017, instead of following the national pandemic plan and having your alternate care sites, abandoned high schools, schools closed, and move the patients there, they decided, well, we'll use a nursing home for a highly contagious disease. We'll not do any outpatient treatment. Right now, in fact, even the famous remdesivir, Dr. Fauci's pet drug, the WHO just released their 40-nation study and said it doesn't really do anything. So the COVID treatment panel has determined that there is no treatment at the moment until you're in the hospital, plus you're on oxygen.
There's no therapeutic.
No therapeutic.
Hydroxy obviously didn't make the cut. Our hydroxy and zithromycin, they didn't make the cut. And they're saying now remdesivir, their official position, there's no therapeutic. You get it?
until you're on oxygen, which
Well,
at that
hey,
time
don't,
it's too late.
don't skip to oxygen. I remember Peter Navarro, the sainted Peter Navarro, moving heaven and earth, getting Defense Production Act, and because we remember ICU units, the first responder teams, the doctors and nurses for ICU units with capacity problems, capacity utilizations, and the ventilators. And you guys saw the ventilator problem. Now I'm hearing that the official, since we've gone up the learning curve, that ventilators are not it. Now you want oxygen temp, something like that.
Well, no, we have enough ventilators. It was an incredible. It was like World War II. Car factories got remade into making ventilators, so we have plenty.
But the problem is now
Here's the
you
thing.
don't want ventilators. You
Here's
want
the
to
thing.
put them on oxygen, right?
Here's the thing, Stephen.
Okay.
When your stove in your kitchen is on fire,
Yep.
you throw water on it. You put it out. You don't wait till the entire house is in flames to call the fire department. For COVID-19, hydroxychloroquine is that pail of water. It dampens down the disease.
Do we get taken off YouTube for putting up a? I'm not. I'm just showing what a box looks like. YouTube. I'm not
But
giving. I'm
here's
not
something-
giving medical advice.
Something really interesting today. They just announced that the Institute of Tropical Medicine in Antwerp, Belgium, is doing what they say is going to be the largest scale study of early treatment for people with COVID-19.
Yeah.
Of course, they're going to Africa with Bill and Melinda Gates' money. And they're going to be looking at some lopinavir, ritonavir, which are two AIDS drugs that they're going to use. And they're going to test a whole multitude of drugs. But here's the interesting thing. This is going to be a combination trial because they're willing to do it in conjunction with the standard treatment in all of these countries, hydroxychloroquine,
but that's great for
which
that's-
remains the standard care treatment in most of Africa.
But that's great news, though.
Of course it is, but here's what we're saying. In the context of Africa's low death rate, nobody seems to have been able to make the connection between their excessive use of hydroxychloroquine on a comparative basis and the number of
Why
deaths.
is that? And why are these reports that came out that said hydroxy had no impact, but nobody did it as a therapeutic? I haven't seen any of the big studies about therapeutics. They all did it after and hitting you up with these high dosages. Why did nobody actually go out and do studies as a therapeutic? Stephen Hatfield, doctor, author of 3 Seconds to Midnight, expert extraordinaire.
It was blocked by two people.
I'm talking about throughout the world. I'm even pointing at the U.S. government because I don't want to get into the finger pointing. There's plenty of time for that later. I'm talking about why didn't the world?
They did. 47 countries are using it. Did you see Slumdog Millionaire?
I did.
Okay, very sad. That was partially filmed in one of the larger slums of Mumbai.
Yep.
You can't social distance. It's impossible. They were aware of that. And you got to remember,
You're
India,
saying in India they hand out hydroxy nonstop.
they learned from 1918. They had one of the highest death rates in
Yep.
the world.
Yep.
They learned from the plague outbreak
The second wave,
in the
yep.
1990s.
Yep.
They were ready. And they didn't do it as Gestapo. They went to the local doctors in the slums, the general practitioners. And they worked with them and they worked with the community leaders and they did an aggressive community outreach. And if somebody, they didn't have test kits. So they did it like we've always done it, really, based on the physician's suspicion. It's proven to be such a safe drug. If anyone has any doubt, go to c19study.com.
Okay,
There's
we'll
every
link to
paper
that.
ever written on it.
Okay, we've got to take a short commercial break. We'll be back in a second. We got Dr. Stephen Hatfield, one of the leading experts in the world on pandemics, wrote a book. Go to Amazon. it's a book that we recommended so strongly when we started the show, and people picked it up and got really got up the learning curve quickly. 3 Seconds to Midnight by Dr. Stephen Hatfield. Jack Maxey, Greg Manns. We're going to take a short commercial break. When we return, talk about the vaccine, and we've got a little special that we're going to leave with at the end of the show. Be back in a moment.
Bring it on and now we'll fight to the end. Just watch and see. It's all started, everything's begun, and you are over. 'Cause we're taking down the CCP. Spread the word all through hope.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Can somebody reach out to Sidney Powell's team? I think we got the Kraken here in the Kraken is actually loose in the war room. Dr. Stephen Hatfield, the Kraken, the ultimate, the original gangster, OG Kraken. OG Kraken. So, okay, we're going to get back to India in a second. Breaking news, Greg Manns?
Yep, so coming out of Carson City, Nevada, a judge has set a hearing for December 3rd at 1:30 p.m., and between now and the 3rd, it allows for depositions for 15 witnesses on both sides.
Showing, they're going to come and bring, and what are they going to show? This about the machines?
Yes, issues with scanners and signature matching.
Here, okay, so tomorrow in Gettysburg, Monday in Arizona, Tuesday in Michigan, Thursday in Nevada, and some of these are a little different. If it goes well in Arizona, they're going to call back. They're going to call for a special session of the state legislature. Michigan is actually hearings to the state legislature. Tomorrow is it's a committee of the majority, the Republicans, but they want to see the evidence. Rudy now has got a forcing function. And hey, you don't know what's going to happen in Gettysburg. There could be some surprises. You never know. I think Real America's Voice is talking about trying to cover it live.
Yeah, and coming out of Pennsylvania as well, this is a majority hearing for the Senate Republicans, and the Senate Democrats are being very forceful in pushing back and saying that it's completely unnecessary and that Mayor Giuliani should not be invited to Pennsylvania on the taxpayers' dime. So they are coming out hard against this tomorrow.
Oh, it's going to be, and there'll be protests. It's going to be crazy. Come on, this is for all the marbles. They've been laying back, not addressing this, and now they're going to get the receipts put up in the grill. They're going to see how they like it. I want to go back to India. How did India solve this? And it looked like it could be a mess when they first started.
It was an aggressive community outreach for early use treatment, just as basically on physician suspicion.
Yeah.
They would they went door to door. They started at 9 in the morning, and they would have a pulse oximeter. That's a little thing that goes on your finger and tells how well how much oxygen is saturating your blood. And they would do symptoms, like they're in protective gear, but they would interview you. And they had a defined checklist by their equivalent of the CDC, their medical authorities. And if it looked like it, you got a treatment pack. You didn't have to pay for it. And they locked down.
And you know what? There's another place where this was done that nobody talks about. The city of Guayaquil, I believe it's called, in Ecuador.
Ecuador, yeah.
This was
That was the
worst place on planet Earth. New York Times front page,
right.
bodies laying in the street.
Yeah.
And literally, they've had almost 500 deaths a day at the height. They had lost control. It's a very impoverished city. There was no way that they could have an effective lockdown because 60% of the people live day to day. And the town fathers got together. They got azithromycin and hydroxychloroquine on the global market for every citizen in the city. They passed it out to every clinic, every pharmacy. Somebody comes in with a cough, you hand them the package. They took that death rate down to nearly zero in 1 month. Now, you look at the country of Ecuador, they have 77 deaths, right? The death rate per, 100,000?
Yeah.
That's lower than the United States. That's half what New York State has and New Jersey have. So don't tell me this does not work.
You think
Brazil.
Yep.
Very good. Para? Is that the state? Did I pronounce that correctly?
I think you did, yes.
Para, their health system was collapsing totally. And the Brazilian prime minister, very intelligent man, moved in with hydroxychloroquine. And they brought this under control in about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And you can see the graphs. Outrageous. Now, not all states agreed to this.
And we saw the similar thing in Brazil with private hospitals
Yes.
where they were handing out the
Yes.
hydroxychloroquine no matter where it was,
Right.
and then state-run hospitals where they were taking marching orders from the equivalent of Governor Cuomo
Yeah.
in Brazil, and they didn't give the hydroxychloroquine, so you could have the same hospital
That was your
across
control.
the street, and the death rate was different.
Serious, Stephen. Within a couple of weeks, it was, and it works
Okay.
operationally.
I want to thank our guest, a special guest from the original War Room Pandemic, has been Dr. Stephen Hatfield. We've got Greg Manns and Jack Maxey, Stephen K. Bannon. Okay, yep, real quick.
So just for the Michigan hearing, there's a report out of Detroit News breaking right now that it will not be happening. The chairman of the Oversight Committee is saying that logistically it's something that they cannot accommodate for. So we'll be following this and everything coming out of
they're folded.
Michigan.
Yeah, need a profile and courage in Michigan. Okay, on tomorrow we get the 10 a.m. show and the 5 o'clock show. Going to be killer shows tomorrow with everything coming out of Pennsylvania. And on Thursday we got a special with it's going to have Larry Swikert, the Patriots History of the United States, Heather McDonald from the Manhattan Institute about her amazing article between Salem and Plymouth, and also Peter Wood of the Pilgrims Society and the commemoration of Thanksgiving. We're going to do all that on Thursday in a special. You can't miss it. Okay, we're going to go out in Utah. They found a monolith in the middle of the desert, in a kind of commemoration of that. We want to show you a close-up of the picture and end with special music from Richard Strauss, Thus Spake Zarathustra from 2001, A Space Odyssey. Actually, this is public domain music, but it's from...
So real quick, people in Michigan, one of those 5 regiments was the 24th from Michigan Iron Brigade. Do not give up. You people come from strong heritage.
Highest casualty rates. Let's roll.